In the heart of the galaxy, an ancient council had gathered. For centuries, this council of galactic species had ruled over the galaxy with unmatched power, unchallenged and feared by all who lived under its watchful eyes. The council consisted of the most advanced and dangerous species in the universe, each with their own motives and desires, yet united in their control over the stars. Among them, the Xeric Empire stood at the top, brutal, calculating, and ever-expanding. They were the ones who set the rules, the ones who decided who lived and who perished in the vast reaches of space. But today was different. Today, Earth was the subject of the Council's attention. Commander Elena Matthews stood at the center of the Grand Council chamber, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Behind her, Earth's representatives stood in silence, each of them bracing for what they knew was coming. They had been called here to answer for humanity's actions, actions that had stirred the galaxy to its core. The council hall was vast and cold, filled with towering figures of alien species, creatures whose mere presence radiated power and authority. On the raised platform, seated like gods, were the leaders of the council. The Xeric leader, Supreme Commander Zorak, loomed at the center, his cold, calculating eyes fixed on Matthews. A holographic projection flickered to life in front of her, displaying images of Earth's growing fleet and its sudden presence on the galactic stage. Humanity had been expanding its reach, exploring new planets, and establishing colonies beyond their homeworld. They had come a long way in a short time, and for the Council, that was a threat. Commander Matthews, Zorak's voice echoed through the chamber, deep and cold. You stand before us today as the representative of your kind, and you will answer for the disturbance you have caused in this galaxy. Matthews stood tall, her heart racing. She had been prepared for this moment. For years, Earth had been watching the movements of the galaxy, studying the powerful council and its empire. They knew their time would come when the universe would demand something in return for humanity's growth. Zorak's eyes narrowed. You and your kind have become too bold. You have crossed boundaries that were never meant to be crossed. Your ships, your technology, your people, they are spreading too far, too fast, and it disrupts the balance of power we've worked so hard to maintain. Matthews tried to keep her voice steady. We have only sought to explore, to expand our reach, and to learn. Humanity has no intention of disrupting the order of this galaxy. Zorak's lips curled into a sneer. Your intentions are irrelevant. The fact is, you are a threat, and threats must be controlled. The silence in the chamber was thick with tension as Matthew's mind raced. What could she say to this? She had known that the Council saw humanity's rapid growth as a danger, but she hadn't expected the demand they were about to make. Zorak gestured to the hologram, which zoomed in on the Earth. The tribute is simple. Humanity owes the Council a tribute, one that will restore the balance and remind your people of their place in this galaxy. A shiver ran down Matthew's spine. She had heard rumors of such demands, galactic empires and powers demanding tribute from lesser species, forcing them to surrender resources, technology, or even people. But a tribute from Earth, the cost could be unimaginable. The hologram shifted again, showing a massive fleet of Xeric warships floating in space, their weapons charged and ready. This tribute, Zorak continued, his voice laced with menace, will be paid in full. Humanity will surrender a portion of its colonies, its technology, and its freedom. Your people will become subjects of the Council, and your ships will belong to us. Matthews felt a chill spread through her as Zorak's words sunk in. The price was steep. To surrender even one colony would mean the loss of millions of lives. To hand over Earth's technology would set them back centuries. And most terrifying of all, if humanity were to submit to the Council, Earth would lose its independence. Humanity would no longer be masters of their own fate. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the room. Earth's representatives exchanged worried glances. Some were afraid, others furious. Matthews could see the fear in their eyes, but she also saw something else, a spark of determination. They would not let this happen. Zorek's cold gaze remained fixed on Matthews. "You have 24 hours to respond, Commander. The tribute will be delivered, or the consequences will be dire." The silence in the room was deafening. The council's representatives sat back in their seats, watching as Matthews stood frozen, her mind racing. How could she possibly agree to these demands? But if she refused, what would happen to Earth? Would the Zerek launch their invasion and obliterate everything humanity had worked for? The fate of humanity was now in her hands. Matthews knew there was no turning back. A decision had to be made. The weight of the moment pressed down on her like a 100-ton stone. She looked around the room at the council, their faces emotionless, waiting for her answer. The clock was ticking, and in that instant, Matthews understood that the answer she gave would determine the future of Earth and of the galaxy itself. Would humanity bow before the council, or would they stand and fight for their survival? The silence in the council chamber was suffocating. Matthews stood still, her heart pounding in her chest, as Supreme Commander Zorek's chilling words echoed in her mind. The demand was clear: surrender or face the consequences. The council had given humanity a choice, but the price was far too steep. As the weight of the situation hung in the air, Matthews' mind raced. The Zerek Empire was the most powerful force in the galaxy, and the Council was no different. There was no denying their power. Earth was a small player in this vast, violent galaxy, and the Zerek knew it. The room remained dead silent, the members of the Council watching Matthews, waiting for her response. All eyes were on her, each alien species a cold, calculating observer. Some were indifferent, others eager to see how Earth would react. Matthews could feel the pressure. This wasn't just about politics, it was about the survival of humanity. Zorek's gaze never wavered. He knew the weight of his words had sunk in. The Zerek Empire ruled the galaxy through fear, and they expected others to obey. But he also knew that humanity wasn't like the other species in the galaxy. Humans were different. They were resourceful, and despite their small size, they had a fighting spirit that could be dangerous. "Commander Matthews," Zorek said, his voice cold and unyielding, "we are not asking you to surrender your people in body and soul, only your resources and colonies. The tribute is reasonable, and your people will be spared, for now." The words hung in the air like a deadly threat. Matthews' eyes narrowed. She understood exactly what was being asked. Surrendering colonies would mean giving up control of entire populations, millions of people left at the mercy of the Council. Giving up technology meant halting Earth's progress and leaving humanity vulnerable to the Zerek Empire's dominance. The thought made her sick to her stomach. How could they simply give in to such demands? Humanity had fought so hard to get this far, to establish itself as a rising force in space. Surrendering to the Council would crush their future, their hopes, and their independence. But what could they do? The Zerek weren't just a threat. They were a war machine. Their fleet could obliterate Earth in a matter of hours if they wanted to. Matthews knew the cost of resistance. It could mean the end of everything humanity had worked for. A soft murmur spread across the room as Earth's representatives exchanged nervous glances. It was clear that fear was taking hold of them. Some seemed ready to accept the tribute, to bow to the pressure and save themselves from the wrath of the Zerek. They were terrified. Matthews could see it in their eyes. But Matthews wasn't like them. She couldn't accept this, not without a fight. She lifted her chin, staring directly at Zorak. The time for hesitation was over. She had to make a decision, but deep down, she knew the cost of giving in would be too great. Humanity's future could not be decided in this room, with their backs pressed against the wall. There had to be another way. "I will not agree to your terms," Matthews said, her voice steady but resolute. The words left her lips with a weight that could not be ignored. "Humanity will not surrender to the Council." There was a sudden, shocked stillness in the room. The Council members looked at one another, their expressions a mixture of surprise and disbelief. Matthews had just rejected the most powerful force in the galaxy. Zorek's face remained unreadable. He leaned forward, his cold, dark eyes locking onto Matthews. "You refuse. You dare refuse the will of the Council." Matthews stood tall, her resolve firm. "I refuse to allow humanity to be a pawn in your game. We will find another way." The room was thick with tension. The Xeric commander's eyes flared with anger. The Council, once so certain of their power, was now faced with an unexpected defiance. Matthews could feel their fury rising, but she held her ground. "You are making a grave mistake, Commander," Zorik said, his voice dangerously calm. "Do you truly believe you can defy the will of the galaxy? You are but a small speck in a universe ruled by powers far greater than you." Matthews clenched her fists, her eyes never leaving Zorik's. "We may be small, but we are not weak. You'll see." Zorik's lips twisted into a cruel smile. "Very well, Commander. You have chosen your path. But know this, you have sealed your fate. The Xeric Empire does not tolerate defiance. If you refuse to submit, you and your people will pay the price." The chamber grew colder, and Matthews could feel the gravity of the situation settling in. The Council would not back down. The Xeric Empire was a force to be reckoned with, and their retaliation would be swift. But Matthews didn't flinch. The fight was far from over. She knew she had just made a powerful enemy, but she also knew something the Council didn't. Humanity wasn't afraid of challenges, and in the face of overwhelming odds, Earth had always found a way to survive. The Council meeting ended abruptly, the members rising from their seats, their cold eyes still fixed on Matthews. As she turned to leave, she could hear their whispers. The Xeric Empire was already preparing for war. Matthews walked out of the chamber with a heavy heart, but a determined mind. The fate of Earth had just been sealed, but she refused to back down. One word echoed in her mind: resistance. After the Council meeting ended, Commander Elena Matthews retreated to a secure location on Earth's flagship, the Resolute. The ship was a symbol of humanity's strength, but today it felt more like a fortress, hiding behind thick layers of armor and shields, as if trying to protect Earth from the inevitable storm ahead. As Matthews stepped into the war room, her senior officers stood ready, each one holding a data pad, their faces grave. There were no words exchanged. Everyone knew the gravity of the moment. They had just rejected the Council's demands, and now Earth faced the wrath of the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Their very survival depended on what they would do next. Admiral Henry Roberts, a seasoned veteran of many intergalactic missions, was the first to speak. "Commander, you made the right call in rejecting the Council's demands. But we both know what comes next. The Xeric Empire doesn't back down. Their fleets are already on the move. We need to prepare for war." Matthews nodded, her eyes fixed on the holographic map of the galaxy displayed in the center of the room. It was clear. The Xeric Empire was vast, their warships outnumbering Earth's fleet by 100 to 1. The odds were overwhelming. No matter how much Earth had advanced in the last few decades, they were still no match for the raw power of the Council. "We can't win this fight head-on," Matthews muttered to herself, almost to no one in particular. The sound of her voice felt small against the vastness of the galaxy. "But we can't surrender either." Roberts looked at her. "What do you mean, Commander?" Matthews turned to face him, her expression fierce, yet calculating. "The Xeric Empire expects us to fight them in open space, to meet them head-on with everything we've got. But that's exactly what they want. We'll be destroyed before we get close to their main fleet. But if we fight on their terms, we've already lost." She stepped forward, pointing at the map. "Instead of attacking them directly, we need to disrupt their control over the galaxy. We'll hit their weakest points, small, isolated bases, supply routes, places they never expect us to strike. A direct confrontation is impossible. But if we strike fast, in the shadows, we can weaken their grip on the galaxy. We can spread their forces thin and make them chase us." The officers exchanged uneasy glances, but Commander, Lieutenant Juno Hall, Earth's lead strategist, spoke up. "We're talking about hitting them without warning." No large battles, just smaller, lightning-fast attacks. It sounds risky. If the Zarek catch on to us, it could be worse than facing them head-to-head. Matthews turned to face the room, her eyes intense. I know the risks, but if we do nothing, we lose everything. We can't afford to wait for them to attack. We need to be the ones on the offensive. We need to make them fear us. The one thing the Zarek Empire didn't expect from humanity is that we won't give up without a fight. We have to hit them where it hurts before they can regroup. There was a heavy silence. The officers understood the gravity of the decision. The Zarek were dangerous, unpredictable, and merciless. But Matthews was right. Earth couldn't afford to be passive. If they waited, they would never have another chance. Roberts nodded. All right, Commander. We'll follow your lead. But we need allies. We can't take on the Zarek alone. Matthews glanced around the room, seeing the worry in their eyes. They were ready to fight, but they all knew this wasn't just about military strategy. They needed support from other species, those who weren't afraid of the Zarek and their tyranny. They needed to convince the galaxy that the Council wasn't invincible. We've already begun to reach out, Matthews replied. Some of the smaller, less powerful species have expressed their willingness to fight back. The timing's critical. We can't waste any more time. Hall looked at her, a question in her eyes. How can we convince them to join us? The Council has always had its way. Why would anyone risk everything to stand with us? Matthews smiled, a rare glint of hope in her eyes. Because Earth has something they don't. We're not like the others. We've fought for everything we have. We didn't conquer the galaxy like the Zarek. We earned our place through hard work and determination. We'll make them understand that fighting with us isn't just about saving Earth. It's about stopping the Council from ruling everything with fear. A murmur of agreement passed through the room. The officers knew she was right. If they could show the galaxy that humanity was willing to fight for freedom, no matter the cost, others might join their cause. The Council's rule could be challenged. Matthews turned back to the map, zooming in on the Zarek Empire's supply routes and key bases. We'll start small, hit them where it hurts, spread the word, and keep moving. We have to stay one step ahead of them at all times. We'll never defeat them in a single battle, but we can weaken them. We can give hope to the galaxy that freedom is still possible. As Matthews made her plans, a voice crackled through the communication system. Commander Matthews, a message from the rebels on Kalura 9. They want to meet. They say they have a way to help. Matthews' eyes lit up. A glimmer of hope shone through the darkness. Put them through. Let's see what they have to offer. The fight for Earth's survival was just beginning, and Matthews knew this was only the first step. They would need every advantage they could get. But this was humanity's chance, an opportunity to stand tall against the Council and show the galaxy that they would not back down. The game had changed. The stars seemed distant, cold, and uncaring as Earth's fleet moved quietly through the darkness of space. The Resolute and its sister ships, the Titan and Vanguard, were cloaked, their engines barely humming as they slipped past Zarek patrols. The silence was only broken by the soft clicks of commanders preparing for the strike. The fleet was not large, but their mission was clear. Hit the Zarek where they least expected it. Commander Matthews stood in the war room of the Resolute, staring at the tactical map that hovered before her. The target was a Zarek supply station, located on the edge of a distant star system, a place where the Empire's resources were stored and distributed. It wasn't heavily guarded, which was why it was the perfect first target for the rebellion. This strike wasn't just about damaging the Zarek supplies. It was about sending a message. Humanity would not kneel. Status report, Matthews ordered, her voice steady. Lieutenant Juno Hall, Earth's lead strategist, quickly scanned the information on her datapad. We're almost in position, Commander. No signs of any major patrols in the area. It's a perfect opportunity for a hit-and-run attack. Matthews nodded. She could feel the tension building. This was their first real test, their first strike in a war that could change the galaxy forever. There was no turning back now. "Prepare the team," Matthews said. "We hit them hard and fast. No room for mistakes." As the fleet approached the supply station, the tension in the control room was palpable. The officers moved with practiced efficiency, each one well aware of the risk they were taking. But Matthews wasn't worried. The Xeric Empire may have been a giant, but even giants had weaknesses. "All ships, prepare for launch," Commander Matthews ordered. On the Resolute, the engines roared to life as Earth's fleet accelerated toward the target. There were no grand speeches, no motivational words, just the quiet determination of soldiers who knew the importance of their mission. The small strike force, a handful of elite soldiers and pilots, would board the Xeric station and sabotage it from within. They would destroy its key systems and force the station's defenses offline, leaving it vulnerable to the fleet's next wave of attacks. It was a risky mission. No one expected all of them to make it back, but it was necessary. Hours passed in tense silence as the strike force closed in on the station. The vast emptiness of space stretched before them like an unyielding ocean, its coldness pressing in from all sides. Matthews watched the readouts carefully, each second feeling like an eternity. "Commander, we've reached the station's outer perimeter," Lieutenant Hall reported. "Launching fighters now." The fighter pilots, trained for lightning-fast strikes, broke away from the fleet and sped toward the station, their sleek ships cutting through space. The Xeric station, once a symbol of imperial power, was now an exposed target, vulnerable in its quiet corner of the galaxy. The fighters engaged the station's outer defenses, drawing fire and allowing the boarding team to get close. Matthews stood by the communications panel, her eyes fixed on the mission's progress. There was no room for error. Every second counted. On the ground, the boarding team, led by Commander Roberts, had already breached the Xeric station's outer walls. The crew, a mix of highly trained soldiers and engineers, moved quickly through the airlock, their footsteps quiet against the metal floors. They were in enemy territory now, and each moment carried the risk of discovery. "Stay sharp, everyone," Roberts whispered into his comm. "We move quickly, take out the key systems, and get out. No one stays behind." The team spread out, sweeping through the station's dark hallways, their weapons ready. The Xeric had no idea they were here, and Matthews knew they had to keep it that way. The mission was simple: destroy the station's main reactor and communication systems, then retreat before the Xeric forces could respond. But as they advanced deeper into the station, something felt wrong. The station was eerily quiet, too quiet. There were no patrols, no guards in sight. It was as if the Xeric had been expecting them. Matthews' gut tightened. It wasn't like the Xeric to leave a station unguarded. "Something's off," Roberts muttered under his breath. "Get ready, we might have company." Suddenly, the station's alarms blared to life, echoing through the cold metal walls. The crew rushed to the reactor room, but the door was locked. Roberts slammed his fist against the control panel, trying to bypass the security system. But then the lights flickered. Something was wrong. "Commander, it's a trap." Roberts' voice crackled through Matthews' comm. "We're surrounded. They knew we were coming." Matthews' heart raced as she gripped the armrest of her chair. This was exactly what she had feared. The Xeric had set a trap, baiting them into attacking a vulnerable station. The fleet, now separated from the station, was too far away to provide backup. Earth's soldiers were trapped. The Xeric were not just powerful, they were cunning. "Roberts, get them out of there," Matthews commanded, her voice steady despite the panic she could feel rising in her chest. "You have to get to the escape pods. Don't fight them unless you have no other choice." She could hear the harsh sounds of combat through the comms. The team was fighting, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Her team was strong, but the Xeric were relentless. "Commander, we've secured the reactor," Roberts shouted, "but we can't make it to the escape pods. The Xeric are closing in. We're not going to make it." "Negative," Matthews snapped, her mind racing. You have to get out. Do you hear me? You have to make it back. This mission won't matter if you don't survive." The comms went silent for a moment. Matthews stood frozen, staring at the map of the station, hoping, praying that Roberts and his team could make it out alive. They were humanity's first strike in the rebellion. If they failed, it wouldn't just be a defeat, it would be the end of any hope for victory. But then the comm crackled back to life. We're making our way out. Just hold on. The reactor is going down. We're heading for the pods now." Matthew's breath caught in her throat. They were alive. For now. But they had made a dangerous enemy in the Zurich, and the cost of their first strike was already being felt. The rebellion had begun, but the road ahead would be far harder than they ever imagined. Back on the Resolute, Matthews gripped the armrests of her chair as she watched the battle unfold on the screen. The Vanguard was in serious trouble, and her fleet was struggling to hold the line. The Zurich had already begun to concentrate their firepower on the remaining Earth ships. "Commander, we've lost contact with Vanguard," Lieutenant Hall said, her voice tight with fear. Matthews didn't answer immediately. She was watching the holographic display, waiting for something, anything, that could turn the tide of battle. "Commander, we can't keep this up much longer." Robert's voice came through the comms, strained and desperate. "We're taking heavy losses. The Vanguard won't survive unless you get us reinforcements. We need to fall back." Matthew's jaw clenched as she watched the Zurich forces close in on the Vanguard. Every fiber of her being screamed to save them, but she knew the cold truth. If they didn't retreat now, they'd lose everything. "Do it, Roberts," she said softly. "Get your people to the escape pods. We'll hold the line as long as we can. You've made it this far. Just get out alive." There was a brief pause, then Robert's voice came back, filled with bitter resignation. "Understood, Commander. We'll make it out." With a final, heartbreaking command, Matthews ordered the retreat. The Vanguard's crew evacuated, leaving behind a wreckage of what was once one of humanity's finest ships. The rebels had paid a heavy price, but Matthews knew this was only the beginning. The Zurich would not stop. The cost of defiance had already been immense, but humanity had taken its first steps toward true resistance. Now, there would be no turning back. The cold vacuum of space seemed to mock humanity's defiance. It had been days since the rebellion's first strike against the Zurich supply station, and despite their small victories, the toll had been heavy. The Vanguard had barely escaped, but many of its crew members were lost, and the ship itself was crippled beyond repair. The Zurich had responded quickly and mercilessly. No one could deny the truth anymore. The Empire was an unstoppable force. Commander Matthews stood on the bridge of the Resolute, staring out into the endless expanse of stars. It had been a hard few days, and the weight of leadership was beginning to feel unbearable. The rebellion had gained some momentum, but the losses were mounting. And now, the Empire had sent its response. "Commander," Lieutenant Hall's voice broke through her thoughts. "We're picking up a massive fleet movement. It's the Zurich. They're heading straight for us." Matthew's stomach dropped. "How many ships?" "Too many," Hall replied, her tone grim. "It looks like they're sending everything they've got. We estimate at least 30 warships. They're not coming to negotiate." The screen in front of Matthews flickered, revealing a cluster of Zurich ships coming into view, dark, menacing silhouettes against the stars. It was an entire fleet, the kind of force that made even the bravest soldier hesitate. "We knew this was coming," Matthews muttered, her fists clenching at her sides. "Prepare the fleet for battle. Everyone get to your stations. We're not running." The Resolute and the remaining Earth ships maneuvered into position, lining up against the incoming Zurich armada. The Zurich ships were formidable, well-armed, heavily shielded, and numerous. Earth's fleet, battered and outnumbered, had no chance of matching their power in a prolonged battle. But Matthews wasn't looking for victory in the traditional sense. She knew what had to be done. "Focus fire on their lead ships," Matthews commanded. We're going to try and break their formation. The moment we take out the lead ships, we'll have a chance to cut through their lines." The crew of the Resolute moved with precision, executing the orders without hesitation. The air in the control room was thick with anticipation. Everyone knew this could be their final stand. The Zurich were coming with everything they had. It was a fight for survival now, not just a battle for victory. As the first shots rang out, the Zurich ships unleashed their firepower, streaking across space like bolts of lightning. Earth's fleet fired back, their weapons lighting up the dark void, but the Zurich shields absorbed the blasts with ease. The Zurich responded with overwhelming fire, forcing the Resolute to maneuver sharply to avoid direct hits. On the surface, it looked like an equal match, but Matthews knew better. The Earth fleet's ships were fast and agile, but they lacked the sheer firepower to make a lasting impact on the Zurich ships. The only hope was to outmaneuver them, use their speed to their advantage. But the Zurich were adapting quickly. "Commander," Lieutenant Hall called out from the tactical station, "we've lost contact with the Titan. They've been hit hard and are falling back. They won't last much longer." "Stay focused," Matthews replied. "We have to hold our ground. If we break now, it's all over." The battle raged on. The sounds of explosions echoed in the bridge as the ship shook with each impact. Matthews' grip on the armrest tightened as she watched her fleet's status. Every ship was damaged in some way, and yet the Zurich kept pushing forward, relentless in their pursuit of total domination. A sudden flare of red light cut through the darkness. The Resolute had taken a direct hit to the starboard side. The ship rocked violently, sending officers tumbling against their consoles. Sparks flew from damaged systems. Matthews stumbled, but she quickly regained her footing. There was no time to waste. "Report," Matthews barked. "Shields are down to 20%, Lieutenant Hall said, voice filled with urgency. "We need to retreat, Commander." The Zurich air. "No," Matthews interrupted. "We can't retreat. We're not leaving anyone behind." Her voice was firm, but inside, a storm raged. The fleet was on the brink of collapse. The Zurich were closing in, and soon they would be surrounded. Matthews knew this was no longer a battle. They were out of options. On the Zurich flagship, Admiral Zurich watched the Earth fleet struggle. His lips curled into a satisfied smile. The rebellion had started as a spark, but now it was about to be extinguished for good. The humans were brave, yes, but foolish. No force in the galaxy could defeat the Zurich Empire, not even the combined might of a desperate rebellion. "Commander, we've captured the Titan," one of his officers reported. "They've been boarded. Their remaining ships are in disarray." "Good," Admiral Zurich said coldly, his gaze fixed on the Earth ships that were beginning to fall apart. "Prepare the final assault. Bring the fleet into full formation. We'll crush them." Back on the Resolute, Matthews knew that the end was near. Earth's fleet had fought bravely, but they were being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Her options were running out, and the Zurich were closing in for the kill. But then, something unexpected happened. A bright flash lit up the horizon, blinding both the Earth fleet and the Zurich forces. Matthews' eyes widened as she saw what had just emerged from the shadow of the Zurich flagship, a massive, unknown ship. "Commander, what is that?" Lieutenant Hall asked, voice full of confusion and awe. Matthews squinted, unable to believe what she was seeing. The ship was huge, far larger than anything Earth or the Zurich had ever built. It glinted with an unfamiliar, otherworldly design. Smooth, almost organic, with pulsating energy flowing across its surface. It was unlike any ship Matthews had ever seen. Then the unexpected happened. The new ship opened fire, not on the Earth fleet, but on the Zurich warships. Its weapons were unlike anything Matthews had encountered, and within seconds, several Zurich ships were destroyed in brilliant explosions. "Who are they?" Matthews whispered, as the mysterious ship continued to obliterate the Zurich forces. The tides of battle had shifted, and Matthews couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. The Xeric Empire was now facing an unknown threat, one they clearly weren't prepared for. The mysterious ship tore through the Xeric formation, and as it did, the remaining Earth ships pulled back, regrouping. "Commander, we've got a chance," Lieutenant Hall shouted, eyes wide with disbelief. Matthews barely had time to process the situation. The unknown ship had come at just the right moment, and for the first time in days, Matthews felt a sliver of hope. "All ships, fall back to formation," Matthews ordered, though her voice was filled with uncertainty. "We fight alongside this new ally. Let's finish this." The battlefield was unrecognizable. What had once been a brilliant stretch of stars, teeming with energy, had become a war zone of fire and debris. The Xeric fleet, once imposing and unyielding, was now retreating in disarray. Ships that had moments ago seemed invincible were being torn apart by the mysterious new ship that had emerged from the shadows. Commander Matthews stood at the center of the Resolute's bridge, her heart pounding with adrenaline. The Earth fleet had retreated to a safe distance, cautiously watching as the unknown ship decimated the Xeric warships. It wasn't just a new force. It was something that could turn the tide of this entire conflict. "Commander, we've successfully neutralized their lead fleet," Lieutenant Hall reported, voice brimming with disbelief. "The Xeric are pulling back. It looks like they're in full retreat." Matthews stood motionless for a moment, processing the words. The enemy was retreating. After days of relentless battle, Earth's fleet had survived, but it was the unknown ship that had sealed their victory. Then the comms system crackled to life. "Commander Matthews," a calm, steady voice filled the bridge. It was the voice of someone who had seen far more than any human should. "This is Captain Arkell of the Sentinel, an ally of your people." Matthews' eyes widened. You're not with the Xeric." "No," Captain Arkell replied, his voice unwavering. "We've been watching humanity for some time. We have seen your strength and your courage. We believe that you are worthy of an alliance." Matthews was still processing what was happening. She glanced at Lieutenant Hall, who was equally stunned. They had fought and lost so much. Now, out of nowhere, a powerful new ally had appeared, seemingly out of thin air. But the question lingered. Why? "Why help us?" Matthews asked, her voice skeptical but hopeful. "Because, Commander Matthews," Arkell's voice softened slightly, "we understand the Xeric Empire better than you do. We've fought them before, and we know that if they're allowed to win, the galaxy will fall into darkness. Humanity is the last hope for freedom, and we've come to offer our support. But we will need something in return." The bridge fell silent. The entire crew was listening intently. Matthews' mind raced. This new ally had helped them win, but the offer came with a price. What could they want from humanity? Could they trust them? "Anything," Matthews said, her voice steady despite the uncertainty that gnawed at her. "Whatever it takes to defeat the Xeric." Arkell's voice was firm. "We will share our technology, the weapons and strategies that have kept the Xeric at bay. We will train your people, and together we will make an alliance that can challenge the Empire. But you must promise this. You will stand united. Humanity must become more than just a rebellion. You must become a force that will protect the galaxy from tyranny." Matthew's heart pounded in her chest. She knew this was a pivotal moment in history. The fate of humanity was about to change forever. "I promise," she said, her voice unwavering. "We will unite, and we will protect the galaxy. The Xeric won't know what hit them." The Resolute's crew erupted into cheers. Matthews felt a surge of pride swell in her chest. For the first time since the war began, she allowed herself to hope. It was a dangerous thing, hope. It could be a weapon, but it could also be the key to survival. And with this new alliance, humanity had the chance to turn the tide. As the Xeric fleet retreated, their ships limping away in the wake of their defeat, Matthews turned to the tactical screen. The mysterious ship, the Sentinel, was now positioned alongside Earth's remaining fleet. It was sleek and deadly, radiating a quiet power that was unmistakable. But there was no time for celebration. The Zerek would regroup, and they would return. Matthews knew they had to be ready for the fight of their lives. "We've won today," Matthews said, her voice cutting through the excitement on the bridge. "But this war isn't over. The Zarek will come back, and when they do, we'll be ready." Captain Arkel's voice came through the comms once again. "Commander Matthews, we will remain by your side. Together, we will bring an end to the Zarek Empire. But first, we must rebuild and prepare for what's to come. Humanity's true strength is only just beginning to show." Matthews nodded. She knew that the true test was still ahead. The Zarek had underestimated humanity before, but they would not make that mistake again. They had only just begun their fight. As Matthews stood on the bridge, watching the debris of battle float past, she allowed herself a rare moment of peace. The war was far from over, but for the first time, she felt that humanity had a chance. They weren't alone anymore. They had allies, and they had something the Zarek didn't: hope. The road ahead would be long and filled with challenges, but Matthews was ready. She would fight for her people, for Earth, for the galaxy. And she knew one thing for certain: humanity would never surrender.